I'm in a much better place. And like I said, I attribute that to being broken. Like, I know what real pain looks like. So I'm able to just, little things, I'm able to just let them go, brush them off, and not let that stuff weigh me down. It keeps me light, and I'm happy, and I'm just doing things that God called me to do.
You're listening to Guards Down. This is Greg Washington.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Guards Down. I hope that you had a wonderful holiday. I know I did. I have with me today a very special guest, Dr. Eboni Ervin. Dr. Eb, how are you?
I am well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. Look, I'm so happy to have you on. You got me a little nervous because we're just now coming off break. So I felt like I haven't done this in a while. So excuse me, if I have any slight hiccups, but
only if you excuse me too.
There you are. Indeed. So I know we've been trying to connect for a while. It's been a good minute. And I just want to give you a chance to kind of give your background, and then we'll just jump into it.
How far back you want me to go?
Tell us about yourself, Dr.
Okay, I got you.
Where
All right,
you
born and raised Huntsville, Alabama. Currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia. Moved here for pharmacy school in 2006. Went back home when I finished, but I moved here for good in 2012. My brother and I lived here from 2012 to the time he passed away in 2017. And I have just been rocking it. After he passed away is when I kind of developed a Dr. Eb. Guess I won't get ahead of myself. I'm sure those things will come later. But that's my story. I'm a pharmacist right now, entrepreneur, author, blogger, podcaster. Got a lot going on.
Indeed. And so what was your passion for becoming a pharmacist?
So I was actually an engineer first, and I hated it. I'm a real people person. And so my engineering job, I'm just in a cubicle, seeing the same faces day in and day out. It was very boring. And I actually started that job as an intern while I was in college. And my mom, when I told her I hated it, she was like, "You ever thought about going into pharmacy practice?" And I was like, "No, not really." So I got a job as a technician while I was in college, and I loved it. Even when I took my engineering position after graduation, I still kept my side job as a technician. And then later I ended up going to pharmacy school, quit the engineering job, and never looked back.
I got you. Man, that sounds exciting. So it sounds like your mom has been an integral part of your life.
Very much so. Her and my dad, my parents are still together. They've been married since my mom was 18, dad was 19. They're still together. So both of them together are a very integral part of my life.
Got you. And my condolences to your brother.
Thank you.
He passed away in 2017. I know that must have been tragic for you.
Still is. Yeah. Like it was just me and him. And the thing about us is we were like this. His birthday was September 10th, mine September 12th. So of course my birthdays are never going to be the same. But I found my purpose on the other side of my pain. So I thank God for that.
Indeed. So who was older, you or him?
Me, 2 years. 2 years. Yeah, he was 2 years younger.
Okay. So there we go. Big sis.
Even though he acted like big bruh. He was so protective of me. It's so funny because he was my younger brother, but he was always so protective. But it's cool. And now I feel like I have a protective guardian angel. So we're good.
There we go. My sisters would probably say the same thing about me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little big brother to them. So indeed. Okay. And you said your parents are both together. If you don't mind, what's their background?
So my mom, she was an accountant. And then my dad, he just always had factory type jobs. My mom was first generation college educated. My dad, he stopped at high school. But they always pushed me and my brother. My brother's name was Jason. So they always pushed me and Jason academically, which is kind of why I just never stopped. I went all the way to the doctorate program. So I
got you. Okay. Well, one of my favorite questions that I like to ask people is, growing up, did your family or surroundings teach you about how to deal with trauma and grief?
No, not at all. But I will say that I guess there was never really a need for it. I never really went through a trauma, experienced any major grief. Even like when my grandfather passed away, which was probably the first real or close loss that I had. I think I was in college at the time. I didn't really grieve him. We had a relationship, but I did not really grieve him. And then that was my dad's mom. My mom's dad. And then I lost my paternal grandmother. And again, I still did not really have like a big grieving process. I think that my first real experience with grief, and please don't judge me, but it's real, was when my dog died. That was like my first experience with grief. That was 2015. I grieved for that doggone dog for a very long time. So when my brother passed away, I had a little bit of experience with grief. Obviously, the two don't compare, but that was my first experience with grief. And nobody taught me how to prepare for that.
Man, so when you said you didn't have a grieving process, because obviously that's you looking back on it, kind of explain.
I just don't remember with either one of them just like being really sad or crying or heartbroken. I think the hardest part for me was at the funerals and seeing my parents grieve. Like once I saw them, I always say that like tears are contagious. So, when I saw how hurt they were, my heart hurt for them, but not necessarily because of my loss. Does that make sense? Does that make me sound insensitive? I hope not. But that's just, I was also younger, kind of. But I didn't really grieve those losses like that. I don't know. And even, the only loss that I really truly grieved was my brother. I just lost my grandmother, but she lived in Ohio. So our relationship, we had a good one, but it wasn't a very strong relationship. So I haven't even really been feeling the grief associated with that loss. I grieve for my mom and my aunts and my uncles, my cousins who had a really close relationship with her. My heart hurts for them, but I'm okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Right.
What?
Because for some people, we just don't grieve or feel that kind of way that others. And like, I feel you when you were like, oh, I grieve for my parents, like tears are contagious. Like I get it. And so it makes you wonder, is something wrong with you for not, and I'm not saying you, but, just
right,
in general, is something wrong with a person if they don't feel that way?
I don't think so. I feel like grief is such a personal journey that however you choose to grieve or not grieve, I don't think anyone can judge you. There's no right or wrong. Nobody can tell you how to feel. And really grief, to me, it's just a reflection of, the love and that you have for that person and how close you were to that person. So if you weren't all that close, not to say the love wasn't there, but if you didn't have that close relationship, when they go on, you're not going to be as broken as you would as somebody that, you're seeing day in and day out, you're spending all this time with. It's just different. And that's how it was with my grandparents. I was never with them like that. But my dog and my brother, I lived with them. You know what I'm saying? And so when they were gone, that's rough. It was rough. I got a tattoo from my little dog. I don't know if you can see it, but...
Oh, you got to hold it up. Let us see.
Where are we at? Yeah, Lexi? Can you see it?
Yep.
Crazy. I never would have thought I would have a tattoo of that.
Yeah. So, and so this kind of goes into the whole coping, right? And so, for example, with your tattoo, did you want it to feel some kind of pain, in the process, or was it just let me put something to memorialize?
So I think it was for the latter, especially with Lexi. It was for the latter. But when I got the tattoo from my brother, not that I wanted something to replace the pain, but like that tattoo did not hurt. It took over 2 hours to do. And I didn't flinch. I didn't cringe. And this thing about me and my brother, we started getting tattoos together. Obviously, he left me with the tattoo numbers because I was on number 2. He was like on number 10. So he left me. But every tattoo I ever got, I always cringed. He used to always make fun of me. But when I got the tattoo, like when he passed away, like I said, the biggest piece I've ever had. And I don't know, I was numb, I guess. But I don't know that it was necessarily me trying to feel a different type of pain. But I think the pain from him was so great that nothing else really compared to that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so the other part to this is, right, that threshold of pain and grievance. I often wonder, is it because I've been through so much pain and grief that I'm able to tolerate even more pain and grief moving forward?
Oh, yeah, I definitely feel that way, for sure. Like nothing, I can't think of another loss to date that could break me the way losing my brother did. Like even if my parents were to pass away, that's the natural succession of life. But when you think about siblings, this is actually under normal circumstances. This is going to be the longest relationship you have with any human being on earth is with your siblings. It's going to be longer than your parents, longer than your spouse, longer than your children, that sibling relationship. So for mine to be cut short, there's not another loss outside of losing a child, maybe that I could imagine would even compare for me to the loss of my brother. So now it's so funny. I tell people all the time, like, not that I'm invincible, but it'll be hella hard to break me now. I've been broken. I put myself back together. I'm good. I'm good.
Indeed. And I like how you kind of put that. You make it seem so easy, right?
It hasn't been easy. It's not easy, but honestly, life is what we make of it, right? So when I lost my brother, I could have easily become just a victim, right? But for me, when I go through something, I choose to grow through it. I choose to be a victor and not a victim. So yeah, of course, my heart hurt like hell then when, I lost Jason. And it still hurts now. I still have days where I'll cry for Jason like he just left here yesterday. But for me, it was like, okay, my brother checked out of here prematurely. God left me here. There's a reason why he left me here. Let me find it. Let me go after that. So in my mind, my life is not in, but my brother's life is not in vain. You know what I'm saying? Like every day I'm working towards my purpose, and it's because my brother left, and it's tied to that. And that's what keeps me going, keeps me breathing, keeps me energized, motivated throughout the day. I refuse to be a victim in this situation. That's just kind of how I look at it.
No, I like that. And I mean, it's commendable. Like I sit and I think about, what you were talking about. And so from a victim to a victor, and I look at it as, being able to go from a victim to a survivor to a hero, and having that mindset and transformation, to be able to go that route. Now, you said something a second ago about you still grieve the loss of your brother as if it was yesterday.
Sometimes.
And that you would cry. And so I've had people, or therapists and life coaches, and they will tell you that your wounds should be like scars, and these scars shouldn't hurt you no more. So like when you touch it, you shouldn't feel or have to feel any pain as if you were reliving it over from day one. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because it kind of touched on the exposure therapy, right? Being able to talk about something so much to the point where it doesn't hurt you anymore and you can just speak openly on it.
So I'm at the point where I can speak, because I'm probably not going to cry in this interview. You know what I mean? But one thing about grief, sometimes it just, how do I describe it? Like it comes in waves. And granted, the longer, or how can I put it? The more time that passes, obviously those waves are further and further apart, but that doesn't mean that you won't feel them. So I don't really agree with the scab analogy. I feel like grief is like a wound. Like, yeah, you have that scab, but that underlying scar or wound is still there. And if at any point you knock that scab off, the wound is still exposed. You're still hurting. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not until you're fully healed, there is no scab, that you don't feel, or there's no chance where you feel in pain. And when it comes to grief, that scab is when you pass away yourself. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to grieve for my brother. But I don't want to not grieve for him. It's like the last act of love that I can give him is my grief. So no, I'm not going to, be sad all the time, mope around in it. But if I have a day where I'm thinking about him and my heart hurts, for me, that's just my love showing still, even though he's been gone 3 years.
That's powerful, right? My last act of love is to show, my grief, my love for him. Damn, I never looked at it that way. I mean, for me, it was, I have these memories and I didn't want to share them with people because they were my memories. I valued them. I held on tight to them for the ones that I lost and then, that I love. And then what I found out was that, well, shit, I'm getting older. I drink, so I'm forgetting stuff. And it's like, all right, I am about to lose these memories that I have of these people that I cherish and I value so much that I need to get it out. And I was just talking with someone today, and I was like, a person dies twice, once in the physical form, and then the second time that their name is, or the last time that their name is spoken.
Oh, that's good. I believe that. Yep.
And so, now I want to be able to share the memories of, my friends and family and my loved ones that have passed, because I want them to be able to live on, forever. And I do want to be able to help someone, even help myself, go from having a mindset of being a victim, why me, to being a survivor, of just being here, to actually being a hero, where you can help save your life or help save the life of someone else that might have been going through, something similar. And so, like, when you said that, I felt it.
Oh, good. But that was kind of like the sentiment behind me and the book that I wrote, My Brother's Keeper, a personal narrative about coping with the loss of a sibling. When I wrote that book, that was kind of like in line with what you were saying about the memories. Like, because when Jason first passed away, that's all I thought about was the memories and how we wouldn't be able to make any new memories. So when I started the book, a lot of it, my initial brainstorming notes was just memories. And now that I have a book, I'll have those memories forever. And my memories can now help somebody else. Because that's the thing with our gift. Like, for me, writing is one of my gifts. So the thing about our gifts is they're not for us. Like, I didn't write the book for me. It was therapeutic for me, but I didn't write it for me. I wrote it for the next person. So now not only am I keeping my brother's memory alive, not only am I, keeping memories in my head, but I'm helping somebody else. And that was always my thought with the book. So that's like my most prized possession is my book.
I got you. So let's kind of get back into this. And so you were saying that your gifts weren't for you, they were for everybody else. Yeah. And writing was therapeutic. And so I wanted to talk about coping. And in the sense of, okay, what did you learn, growing up coping that was healthy and unhealthy? And then what did you have to reteach yourself or relearn to have healthier coping habits?
So the first thing that popped out when you asked me that was I learned what not to do. My parents have a tendency, which if they ever see this, they'll probably be mad. I don't care, it's the truth. They have a tendency to sweep everything under the rug and not necessarily deal with things. Even like when for instance, when my grandmother passed away, I know my dad was devastated. He grieved, but he just suppressed it so. And even fast forward now, when my brother passed away, whenever his voice cracks, eyes water, he'll kind of either shy away, he'll walk away, he'll basically just not allow anybody to see him grieve. And I don't even know if he expresses it when he's by himself that much. But for me, that was a lesson. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be afraid to not express how I feel, to get it out, especially because I battled with clinical depression for more than a decade. So when Jason passed away, I'm dealing with depression, I'm dealing with grief. Something got to give, right? So I learned that it's okay to express myself. As far as what I learned that I retained growing up, I had to pretty much learn how to grieve, how to cope on my own. Everybody, like I say, just kind of doesn't deal with it. I'm the first person that's kind of just ripped the Band-Aid off and dealt with it.
Yeah. So ripping the Band-Aid off, dealing with it, learning how to, grieve on your own. I've seen, especially in our culture, a lot of people say, oh, well, I just give it to God.
Okay. So let me tell you about me and God, right? So Jason passed away. We buried him. And when I left the church after burying Jason, me and God just got further and further and further apart, to the point where when people would tell me, I'm praying for you, I wouldn't want to hear it. I didn't care. I was all prayed out. I had stopped praying. Like, I felt like God had abandoned me, right? So for me, it wasn't about giving it to God, because God had taken everything away from me that I cared about. That's how I felt. So for me, I had a beef with God when Jason passed away. But what I noticed was, as more and more time progressed and I got further and further away from God, my ability to manage my grief got harder and harder, to the point where I finally broke. And at that point, because I grew up in the church, I mean, I never stopped believing in God. I was just mad at him. It's like if you have a kid, they don't, just because something happens, they don't stop loving you, but they're mad at you. They don't want to talk to you. So that's kind of how it was with me and God. But when I broke, I had no one else to turn to. God was there, like a parent, like he never left, and changed my life.
So when you say you got further away from God, what do you mean?
I stopped praying. I stopped going to church. I stopped asking people to pray for me. I started telling people, don't mention God to me. I was done. Like I said, I never stopped. I wouldn't say I was like an atheist. Like, I didn't get to that point, but I just didn't want to hear anything about God, because from where I sat, God was the reason I was in the position I was in. You see what I'm saying? Like, because he called my brother home.
I got you. And so praying, going to church, like, I kind of want to break this down, not from a spiritual standpoint, but from the concept or ideal of getting a person's aligned, your inner self aligned, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I've seen is people pray is kind of along the same lines of meditation, right? Being able to get your mind and your spirit and emotions aligned to be at peace. And then when you talk about going to church, it's around being around like-minded people that are positive and supporting to, and kind of like having that tribe or community that is willing to support you. And so I kind of wanted to get your thoughts from that point of view, because I know for me, and just the little bit that I've researched, grieving it shouldn't be done alone. It's a community process.
I guess I have mixed feelings about the community process. Simply because at the lowest point of my grief journey, nobody could help me but God. Like, nobody could help me. Like, I had a support system. I had people who wanted to help me, wanted to be there for me, but nobody could help me. There was nothing that anyone could say, do, that would have helped me. So for me, it wasn't necessarily about a community, because I didn't want to be around anybody. Like when I was around people, I felt the worst. So I guess it just depends on the person. I do believe that it is important, though, especially like somebody like me who, like I said, kind of was beefing with God, still have people in your corner who are still praying for you, who are still putting those words up to God for you, because that's what carries you when you're going through, those things. But prayer for me before Jason and after Jason. Now, I mean, like you said, I guess it's kind of like meditation, just kind of help keep me centered. Church is always good, like you say, for the community aspect. And also to see that, okay, there are other people here who believe in the same God that I believe in. He delivered them from things that I'm going through. If he delivered them, he can deliver me. There are some grievers in the church. If they're able to smile, laugh again, okay, there's hope. I may not be smiling, laughing today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next day, but eventually I can get there too. So that's what church did for me when I went back after losing Jason.
So it's a combination of both, right? There are some individual internal things that you have to deal with on your own, and then having the support of other people around you that might have gone through similar experiences helps, see you through. But
I think that you kind of have to go through that individual journey to even be in a position to receive that help. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, that's kind of where I was. Like, I had to go through it alone before I was in a position to receive that help, and then now to give that help. I had to go through it myself, have my own journey. Because everybody can tell you, how to cope or how the best ways to cope, but what works for you may not work for me. I just feel like grief is such a personal journey. There's no way, like, I could never try to tell somebody how to grieve or how to grieve the loss of a sibling. My book is a personal narrative about coping, but it's my experience. And I just hope that maybe the reader can pull something from that. But I'm in no way trying to tell you how to cope, because your sibling relationship isn't my sibling relationship. So It's just, it's just different.
No, I like how you said that, because everybody is different, right? Based on how you grew up and how you handle trauma and disappointment in life, will determine how you handle the bigger things. Mm-hmm. And so I always talk about a person who grew up with a wooden spoon in their mouth versus someone with a silver spoon. Mm-hmm. So if you have been used to dealing with, bad situations in life, you are more able or susceptible to be able to cope better, as an adult. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with, bigger things.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason why I had such a hard time dealing with the loss of Jason, was because I had no initial reference point. Like you said, when you're growing up, you've gone through things that may have broken you as a child or young adult. When things break you as an adult, not that you necessarily can deal with them better, but you just kind of have that tougher skin. I didn't have that. So it was hell. And like I said, sometimes it still is. But, I take the good with the bad, because as long as I still have tears. He knows I still love him. I have not forgotten him. I'm still pushing every day for him. Like I said, it's my last act of love. So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. So tell us this. What are some signs that a person is dealing with trauma or grief, feeling, thoughts, actions?
So I honestly can't talk about anybody else, because like I said, again, I feel like it's personal. So for me, I was very withdrawn. Like I said, the things that I used to love to do, I no longer have the desire to do. Like, I am huge in fitness. I love working out, lifting weights, exercising. I'm huge in that. My brother used to do it all the time. When he first passed away, I didn't want to go to a gym. And that was something that I did faithfully. So for me, I was very withdrawn from the things that I loved and cared about. I pushed people away that I loved and cared about. I already talked about, my relationship with God was strained. And I just had this general sense of apathy. Like, I just did not care. I told my mom once, I got to the point where I really didn't care if I lived or died. I was not suicidal. Like, I was not going to take my own life, but I just didn't care whether or not I lived or died. And so things like that for me were signs like, okay, yeah, this is bad, because when you stop caring about life, you're knocking on the door to suicidality. Which is part of the reason why I never got on any antidepressants or anything like that, because I didn't want anything that would tip me over the edge and potentially make me go ahead and join Jason. So it's that.
I got you. No, that's good. Okay. So feeling withdrawn, I'm generalizing it to say, turning away from your upbringing when you talk about church, right? Mm-hmm. As far as what you would believe or whatever your faith base is, and then just not caring about life. Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, what were some of the things that you wanted from a support standpoint from yourself and from others?
I think initially I just wanted to get through a day without crying. Like, initially, I just wanted to be able to survive. Like literally the first year that Jason passed away, when he first passed away, he passed away in April 29, 2017. The first few months were fine. And it was just because, during those first few months, that's when everybody's checking on you. Everybody's calling you. So a lot of times when somebody first passed away, you don't even have time to deal with your grief or whatnot. But after that, like I said, I wanted to stop crying. I wanted to just care again. Like I got to but the funny thing was I didn't care, but I still wanted people to think that I did. So I was still doing my hair. I was still getting my nails done. I was putting on this facade, and I wanted to get to the point where I didn't have to do that. I wanted to get to the point where I felt like it was okay for me to be vulnerable and to not always be so put together when I was so broken. And then I just wanted a piece of normality, like nothing about my life seemed normal when he passed away. And I just wanted something to feel normal. I think those were like the biggest things that I was looking for.
Yeah. Man. I feel you. I mean, it's kind of like, it makes you want to be like, oh, I'll come be your friend. Right. And so a lot of folks that I talk to, when we touch on support, they really just wanted someone to be there. Not that they had to have a person do something or, or motivate them, just be there. I know for me, there were times where I didn't want to say anything. I was fine if you just came in the room and watched TV with me. I was good. We ain't had to talk about nothing. We just, whatever the distraction was for me, like it didn't have to be anything, just, Yeah,
I eventually got to that point too, where like I wanted people to call me. I wanted to talk on the phone, but I didn't want to talk about Jason. I didn't want to talk about grief. I didn't want you to say, I'm sorry. I didn't want that. I just wanted us to talk like, again, it's back to that normality. I just wanted us to talk like we talked before he passed, like you said, just somebody just to be there, but not necessarily trying to help you work through the grief, but just be there. And I kind of wanted that, not necessarily in the physical form. I didn't want to be around anybody, but when I wanted to talk to people, I just wanted to talk to them like we talked before, because that for me was normal. And that's what I was searching for, was something that was normal, not somebody walking on eggshells every time they talk to me, Mm-hmm. No eggshells now. So I don't want eggshells now.
Indeed. And so like, and I mean, I'm glad you mentioned this and brings it up, because with Guards Down and what we're doing, like my focus isn't to say that, oh, we have this cookie cutter, solution on how to help yourself out, or how to get over it, right? Because we don't have all the answers, but my whole thing is you don't have to go through it alone.
Right.
And so being able to have a tribe, a support group that has been where you've been and is willing to just, want normalcy just like you. I think that's big, when it comes to finding that support and having a community. So
it is. And I finally found that, like I said, once I got to a place where I was better as an individual in my grief, I was more open and receptive to people's support. Like I could appreciate their support. It was just a hard journey getting to that point, to where I was receptive of support. Mm-hmm. Some people are receptive of it right away. But I wasn't. Like, I just wanted to be left the hell alone.
I might tell this.
But, I did get to the point where I really did appreciate my tribe, my people who, like I said, never stopped praying for me, never stopped checking on me, because when I was ready to talk and ready to be supported, they were there, and I appreciated them for that. Mm-hmm. But they also knew me well enough to be my space, and my thing with my friends, a lot of times I told them, because I was still posting on social media a lot at this time, like way more than I do now. Even when Jason passed away, I used to post all the time. And I told my friends, I was like, okay, social media, that's how y'all can check on me without checking on me. If I go more than 3 days without posting, you may want to text or call me. But as long as I'm posting every day, that means I'm getting up out the bed, I'm taking care of myself, I'm surviving. But if I go 3 days and you don't see nothing, you hit me up, you check on me. And that was like our thing. And I had some people, when they would text me, I would go to my Instagram and I would be like, oh shit, 3 days ago, okay. But that was a way for them to check on me without feeling like they were bothering me. Because that's the thing too with your friends. They want to check on you. They want to make sure you're okay, but they don't want to harass you. They don't want to bother you all the time. So for me, that was the way for me to be like, okay, y'all, I'm good, but this is how y'all can check on me. And it worked. It worked.
No, that's awesome. So have a plan, right?
Yeah.
And so for you, all right, if you don't see me on social media in 3 days, call and check on me. I like that. I do.
It gave me the space that I needed. And it also gave them like, okay, she's posting today. She's good. It gave them that relief. So it worked for both of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So tell me this, what was the toughest part of your journey?
Accepting the fact that he wasn't just gone, he was gone forever. Because, when he moved in with me, when I bought my house, he moved in with me. He stayed in the basement. And the hardest part came when, how can I describe it? Because for me, a lot of times when I was here, I could just think, okay, he's in the basement. You know what I mean? And like his car was still here in the driveway. So it was like I still had those little bits of normalcy. But once my parents took the car, his car wasn't here. And then it really sunk in like, okay, he's not here. It was just that, like, he's not here. He's not coming back. It was just that moment when I just really took that in. And that's kind of like when I broke, when I was like, okay, he's not just in the basement. He's not just gone to work. He's not just at home with my parents. He's gone. And when I remember driving home from work, when they had took his car, his Camaro, back to Alabama, and I drove home from work and that car was not out there, I sat in my car for like an hour and cried. Just, that was like a reality check. Like, he's gone.
Yeah. Is that the moment when you broke?
Soon after.
So Tell us, is it okay? Can you tell us about when you broke?
When I broke?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care. I'm open book. We can talk about it. I'm here. We good. Right. I told you, I'm good. I'm at the point where I've talked about my story so much. I have a book. I talked about it. So for me, soon after the whole Camaro incident, like in my book, I talk about the Camaro being taken away. Like the very next chapter is like the grief. And that's like when the grief really started to settle in. It was when the car was gone. It was just me. And like I said, this time I'm getting further and further away from God. So it got to the point where like I could not function every day. Like I was just in the bed in the fetal position. I wasn't eating. I could not function. And I got to the point where I had made myself like physically sick. And at that moment, I was just like, God, I can't do this. And like, I'm screaming, except I'm not that calm. I'm like yelling at God, screaming at God. And I'm like, I'm yelling at Jason, screaming at Jason, like, why did you leave? And I'm like, y'all help me or whatever. I'll never forget. I was actually like in the fetal position on my couch, like screaming and crying, like, God, help me. I can't do it anymore. And that was probably the hardest day that I've ever cried since Jason passed away. That was like the day that I prayed the hardest since Jason passed away, because I was just so broken. That was like the day where I was like, if I walked outside and got hit by a car, thank you, God. Thank you for doing something right. Like, that's how bad I was hurting. And then God stepped in. I'm not going to say like the next day I was great, but that was after that day was when I just started getting better and better and better and better.
Why was it after that day you started getting better?
I think it's the grace of God. I have no other explanation. Nothing else changed. Literally nothing else changed. That was the first prayer that I prayed since the day of the funeral. So, nothing else changed other than I prayed. Literally nothing else changed.
But in prayer, you had to want something, right?
I just I prayed for God to help me stop hurting so badly. And he answered my prayer. Because, other than that, nothing changed. My brother was not here. My support system didn't come swooping in. nothing changed.
Mm-hmm.
I was still away from work.
Nothing external changed, right?
Right, nothing external.
So did something internally change?
I think when I prayed that day and I got all of that out of me, I had room to heal. Like, I don't know, that sounds kind of crazy, but, and I became open to the idea of healing. And that's kind of where I shifted from the victim to victor. Like, okay, I can't keep living like this. I've got to pick myself up, if for no other reason, because I got to go to work and support myself. And so I guess internally that may have been it, but I really don't have like this miraculous story of this internal transformation that occurred. Because it wasn't like that. It was just, I don't know. I broke. I feel like God answered my prayers. And the next day I had the energy to live again. Just a little. Which is all you need. It's just a little. And every day you build on that. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, I asked because, you know, it reminds me of like what I had to go through. And I feel like everybody has to go through that low point, mm-hmm. right? So some people's low point is suicidal, right? Do I take my life? Other people's low point is I just feel really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like a person has to go through that low point, and that's that internal. And once they hit that low point, you have to make a decision of, do I want to stay here or do I want better?
Yep.
And whatever better looks like or is. And like you said, once you make that decision, right, it's like a crack in the cement or in a wall. And if you could flash light through it, you know, it can shine through the other side. Or just like how you would see a rose that would end up blossoming, you know, in the middle of New York, you know, on you know, you would get something like that. And so, one, let me just say thank you for sharing. Like,
oh yeah, it's fine.
I really appreciate, you know, you just opening up. I definitely got to go get this book and read it because it sounds exciting. You know, you got me in here. I can imagine you being on the couch and screaming and
it was bad.
Out. And really, it's kind of like the calm after the storm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then saying, now what?
Yeah, because after that incident happened, my mom had reached out. She's like, I'm coming to Atlanta. Let's go to church. And keep in mind, like, I hadn't been to church. So I was a little, I mean, even though I had, you know, I had a little moment with God, I was still, you know, I don't know if I want to go to church or whatever. But I went. And I talk about it in the book, so I won't ruin it for you. But the sermon was for me. You know, sometimes when you go through something, you go to church, everybody feel like, oh, that sermon was for me. It was for me. And that also helped kind of just shift some things. And there were a lot of things that happened around that time that kind of, like I said, helped push me forward. And then after all of that, the book, I got the idea to write the book. And I lived, ate, slept that book. Like, I wrote that book in less than 8 weeks. I mean, yeah, from like the thought of doing the book to having a finished product was like less than 2 months.
Wow.
And when I was reading about people who write books, their first book sometimes takes 6 months, a year. It was less than 8 weeks. And everybody who's read it, I mean, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. And my whole goal with the book was to create a visual. Like, I wanted you to be able to see what I went through, feel what I went through. And a lot of people did. And people who didn't even know me personally, didn't know Jason at all, they cried in the book. Get your tissue if you're going to get the book. But it's such a story of hope. I was just actually rereading the first several chapters the other day. Like, just, you know, just again, those memories and not wanting to forget them. So yeah, just get the book. It's good. Indeed. You won't be disappointed. I'm going to send it to you, actually. I'm going to send it to you. I am.
Indeed.
I appreciate you having me on your platform. Like, this is my first interview. I mean, this is something I want to do. I love helping people, talking to people. If this can bless one person, my purpose is served with the interview. So I'm appreciative of having you here. I mean, you having me here. Well.
I appreciate that. I really do. Okay. You got me smiling and blushing. I don't know if y'all can see me. I'm turning all red and stuff. It's just been amazing to talk to you. It really has. And just to learn more about you. Like, this is dope. It's unfortunate what we go through.
Right. But
the person that you become on the other side of your grief and trauma is so amazing. Mm-hmm. You know,
like I always say, like outside of my underlying grief, I'm like the happiest, healthiest, most fulfilled version of myself, like outside of my underlying grief. Like I've never been where I am right now. Indeed. It's sad that, it has to come on the other side of that, but that's the good, that at least out of all that heartache, that's the good part. That's the good thing that came out of it. So
yeah.
I agree.
So it reminds me of a saying that, my best friend Emily, what she said to another classmate that was going through, and it was just keep waking up.
Yep. That's good.
Going through something hard now and you're struggling with it. Just keep waking up because tomorrow could be different. Yep.
That is so true. That is so true. Tomorrow could definitely be different. Even if it's just a little bit different. Every day gets a little bit more different. And that, gets a little bit better. So yeah, I love that. Just keep waking up. That's cute. I like that.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about making amends. So understanding that hurt people. Mm-hmm. So going through your grief and trauma, people being there, folks not being there, not being able to process these feelings in a productive way, you tend to hurt other people in your process of grieving. So I just wanted you to kind of touch on that, in your process. Was there anyone that you had hurt that you had to make amends with? And if so, how did you do it?
I didn't have anyone that I hurt. Not that I'm aware of, I should say. No. Even before all this happened, I've always lived by that hurt people thing. So I consciously tried not to hurt anyone throughout my grieving process. Even my friends and things that I knew, wanted to be there for me. I knew, I always tried to be vocal with them so that I wouldn't hurt their feelings. You see what I'm saying? But I never really hurt anyone in my grief. I had to forgive people who weren't sorry surrounding my loss. But I didn't necessarily hurt people because initially I wasn't around people. I wasn't around people until I was healthy enough to be around people. So I didn't hurt anyone. People hurt me. I didn't hurt anybody. Not that I know of, because we hurt people all the time we don't even know, but not that I know of.
I got you. Well, what would you tell or advice would you give when it comes to making amends?
I think first it depends on the relationship. If it's somebody that you care about, then the amends are necessary. But if it's somebody that you honestly can live without, it's going to sound bad, but maybe let me just talk about me. Let me not give anybody any advice. Let me just tell you about me, because I don't want to seem like this girl. So let me give you an example. I had a friend, a really good friend of mine, and just to put our friendship into perspective, if I were to get married at the time, I would have had her as a bridesmaid. So that's just how close we were. So when Jason passed away, obviously she was one of the first people that I told. And the week of the funeral, she also used to do my hair. The week of the funeral, she told me, I'm coming in town. I'm gonna be there early, in case you want me to do your hair, whatnot. And I was like, I don't care about my hair. Don't worry about it. Just come. She didn't come. And not only did she not come, I didn't hear from her. Even in the months after, I did not hear from her. And I always, try to be like, maybe something was going on with her, but she was still posting on social media. She was fine. Never heard from her. And that hurt me to my core, right? So then fast forward, she reached out to me maybe a year or so later, and I had already forgiven her. But when she reached out, I really didn't know what to say to her. So I was just honest. I was like, so much time has passed. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to really proceed, but maybe we can. And then she disappeared again. So for me, my making amends just didn't work. So I don't have any advice like on that. I really don't. I just, if it's somebody you care about, obviously I guess try to make amends. But as far as how to go about that, I don't know, because I have yet to make amends with the people surrounding my grief that have done me wrong. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel like I answered that question poorly, but
no, you did, and I mean, and I appreciate the truth in it, right? Because there are some situations that, I mean, let's keep it real, like it ain't worth making amends. I mean, you have to internally make amends and say, okay, you know, this person did me wrong.
Right.
I'm not going to allow them to take hold of my life by keeping a grudge and being angry. I'm going to accept it, forgive, you know, what I need to, and move on.
Right. Exactly. Because, you know, forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. It's for you. And then too, like when Jason passed away, I had this whole little, I can live without anybody mentality. So I just wasn't in the business of trying to save friendships, save relationships, because in my mind, I'm like, if I can wake up every day and somehow function without Jason, I can function without you. So, you know, anybody who in any way negatively impacted my mental health or my energy around that time, I didn't care, you know? So I guess during that time, I wasn't in the best mental position to even try to make amends, because I just didn't care. I'm like, well, I'm living out without my brother. I can definitely live without you, you know? So that's kind of how I approached it, which I don't know, may or may not have been a bad thing. But
no, I mean, because you look at it, if you weren't the one hurting someone, then the making amends wasn't on you, right? And so now it becomes, how do I keep my peace? Because you threw up the, the peace sign. And if someone is disturbing your peace,
they gotta go. They have to go. Because when you lose somebody that close to you, you're already broken. Like, you're just so broken. You're so fragile. So you're in survival mode. Like, you have to do any and everything possible to maintain the little bit of sanity, peace, happiness, joy that you have. So if anybody, just like you say, threatens that, you just gotta go. You just gotta go. And even now, like, I'm like that, like with people. The minute you start negatively impacting my energy, I will cut you off. That's just where I'm at. I mean, and it's not me trying to be mean, selfish, anything. It's just, I'm still broken. I'm still healing. And so I just protect my energy at all costs. That's friendships, relationships, jobs. My mental health is my number one priority. Always.
Gotcha. So through all of this, what keeps you going when you want to give up?
My brother, the thought of my brother. Like everything that I am doing is really tied to being in the position to get his story, our story, on a larger platform. So everything that I do, whether it's, like I said, the books that I write, it's posting on social media, it's the businesses that I start, everything that I do is all with the goal of building my platform to the point where I can share his story on a larger platform. And so that's what keeps me going all the time. Yeah. All the time.
And so, okay. With that being said, did you ever go through any moments of having destructive behavior or, being suicidal?
No, not suicidal. Like I said, I was never at the point where I wanted to take my own life. I was just at the point where I didn't care if someone or something else did. So, suicidal, obviously you kill yourself. I wouldn't do that. But like I said, if I walked outside and I got hit by a car, I wouldn't have cared. Like, I wouldn't have tried to run across the street. You could just hit me. It's that. So I wouldn't try to kill myself. I'm not going to slip my wrist. But I just didn't care if I lived or died. I did get to that point. Like I said, it was just like knocking on suicidality's door. It's like knocking on it.
Gotcha.
And I just didn't want to get there. Like I said, because I already battled with depression. And so there will be times in my grief process where I'm having a major depressive episode and a major grief reaction. I was dying. Like, it would just be terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. So with that, do you feel like a person has to wait until they're in their darkest hour to make a change?
No. Yeah, no, I pray people don't be like me. Don't wait till you about to lose it all to try to make a change. Like, no. I do think that you do have to get to the point where you truly accept your loss in every part of it. And that can put you in a dark place. But I don't feel like you have to go that low to begin making a change. And I would encourage people to try not to get that low, to try your hardest, to do whatever it takes for you to stay level. But I feel like a lot of times people are going to get low because when you finally accept it, that's when you go low. Mm-hmm. But that acceptance is necessary for you to, keep going.
Got you. Okay. All right. So the next set of questions, because we're going to wrap it up, is around seeking help. So, first, going through your process, being a doctor, did you seek help from any other therapists or life coaches?
So when Jason first passed away, no, I did not seek any help for therapy. I've never, even like I said, I battled with depression for like a decade, never sought, a therapist. I did go see my doctor, my MD, for something to help me sleep. That was about the extent of my seeking medical attention. Fast forward to 2019, I remember having this major depressive and grief episode. I mean, to the point where it was like crippling. Like I hadn't been that bad off since, the year Jason passed away, and I just couldn't function. And so my mom, she suggested just try going to therapy. And at that time I had also read Charlamagne the God's book, Shook One, where he talks about, therapy and all that. So I decided to give therapy a try for once. I was like, it can't hurt. I'm obviously not managing this on my own. Finally went to therapy and it changed my life. For a year straight, I was going to therapy every week. And it changed my life. And I went every week up until Corona hit last March. And then, kind of fell off because she wasn't having sessions. And when she first started doing virtual, I didn't want to do it. But towards the end of last year, I started back going to see my therapist. But therapy changed my life. So that I will suggest that people do. Even though I didn't do it, took me a lot to get to that point, I would suggest people do therapy. It's great if you find the right therapist.
Got you. And so did your therapist, was the race, gender, or background of your therapist, did that play a part in your connection and the effectiveness of your treatment?
I definitely think so. She's a Black woman. We're both Deltas. So, yeah, I definitely think so. I definitely think that played a role.
Okay. And then the other part was around like the medicine. So you said that you couldn't sleep. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to talk about medicines for a minute to kind of get into your thoughts on prescription medicine versus alternative medicine versus like cannabis and CBD products.
So I think that all of them can work. If I had to put them, I guess, in some sort of hierarchy, I don't know, cannabis and prescription drugs, I'd almost kind of put very close together. And then the alternative meds, I would kind of put below. I know that cannabis has helped a lot of people, especially surrounding anxiety and things of that nature, which sometimes that is a part of grief to relive the memories and all these things can cause you to become anxious and all those things. It does help calm your nerves. The prescription medications for depression, I have mixed feelings about them because if you're going to get something prescribed for grief, they're going to give you antidepressants. That's what they're going to give you. And my experience with antidepressants, I was on them for like 2 months when I first got diagnosed with depression years ago. They didn't really help me. And I don't think that they would have helped me in my grief because antidepressants work by fixing the chemical imbalance. If your depression is caused by something situational, so in my case, grief, the drugs really don't work that well. So I guess maybe even cannabis and medical prescriptions and the alternative meds. I don't really fool too much with alternative medicine personally, but I do know people who swear by it. So that's that. And I've never tried cannabis. I don't know. So I don't have any personal recollection of whether it works or not. But I know people who do. So, but again, it's still medicine, cannabis, it's all temporary though. You still at some point have to address the underlying problem and not just throw things at it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I know for me, like I had trouble with sleeping as well, insomnia, bad dreams. I mean, for me, it was to a point where I couldn't tell you if I was dreaming or awake.
Oh, wow.
And it was that bad. And trying the prescriptions, you know, like I show people, the prescriptions of what I would have had to take, you know, over the course of a year in order just to feel bland. And
that's what they numb. Yeah.
And so you take one and you have to take another one because the first one you took had side effects. And so you're always trying to counter these side effects. And it just got to a point where I didn't feel natural. I didn't want to be hooked on anything. And so I looked for alternative means of like being able to help myself. And so, you know, I got into cannabis and into CBD products because like for me, it helps me go to sleep. Now, I don't use it all the time. I use it when I'm at that hard point in the cycle, the sleep cycle, where, all right, I'm now staying up and I may only get an hour worth of sleep a night. And so, now I need to, you know, do something else. So that's why I asked, you know, I wanted to start to get people's take on prescription and alternative medicines, as well as, you know, their take on cannabis, just because we're moving into a new era of, you know, healthcare as well as, you know, healing. And I really feel like people should not only just go to the doctor and say, hey, what's wrong with me? Right. But you also need to start to learn about yourself and what you're dealing with and going through as well.
Yep.
And so
that's true. That is very true. I like I said, I've never tried cannabis, but I definitely feel like more people should. Because I think it can help a lot of people. You know what I mean? So we'll see what goes with it. Like you say, medicine is changing. So we'll see what happens. Side note, I have a PTSD story for you too, because I'm just all messed up.
Look, we got time.
I got a few minutes for my PTSD story.
Let's hear it.
My last day working at the pharmacy was October 9th, 2020. So a few months ago. And that was because I was working or whatever. And a customer comes to the consultation window. And he calls me over. He looks a little sketch, but I mean, we all have on masks and he had on a hoodie. It's the fall, so I ain't thinking anything about it. I go over to the counter and he pulls a gun out, tells me to come here. So I go over to him and he tells me he wants all the Percocet, all the leans, so, you know, the promethazine coating cough syrup or whatnot. And I'm like, it took me a minute to register, like, Ebony, your life is in danger. Because at first I'm just like, looking at this man, you know, just like in a blank stare. And he says it again. And that's when it clicks like, Ebony, there's a gun pointed at you. This man is requesting drugs. You need to figure this shit out, you know, whatever. And so I tell him, you know, the drugs aren't where we are. I got to move. He has me move to another part of the pharmacy. All the while he's telling me if I look at anybody, if I do anything, he's going to shoot me. So then I go and retrieve the drugs. I told him they're in two different safes. And he was like, don't pick up a phone, don't do anything, or I'm shooting you. I was like, okay. I go to one safe, I get the cough syrup out, I sit it on the counter. Come around, go to the second safe to get the Percocet out. My cell phone is over there though. And I told him before, like, I'm going to have to get low. You're not going to be able to see me when I get in this safe. So I get my phone. I'm like texting my boss. I'm texting like the other people in the store. I'm like, I'm being robbed at gunpoint. Somebody please call the police. Da-da-da-da-da. Next thing I know, which I had happened to drop the phone because I was shaking so much. And I guess it's very good that I did, because next thing I know, this man is standing over me inside the pharmacy. Like, what are you doing? And my phone is open, like with the text open. So I know he saw it. So I just instantly thought, oh God, this man is going to shoot me. And all I'm thinking is, oh my God, my parents just lost my brother. They lost my brother. They lost my brother. They can't lose me too. They can't lose me too, or whatever. Long story short, he just wanted the drugs. He took the drugs from me. He went around and got the cough syrup. He left. The next day, guess what I tried to do? Try to go back to work. My therapist the night before had told me not to go. I go back to work. I look at the consultation window and it's like the walls are closing in. I can't breathe. I see this man over here with this gun, and I ended up having to leave. My therapist diagnosed me with PTSD, took me out of work for 6 months, and here we are.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, grief, PTSD, which one you want?
Yeah. I mean, we're laughing now, but I'm very thankful that you're still here and you handled it the way you did.
And then the thing with that, it was also a trigger for grief because, you know, I was I am, I guess I could say technically, I still am, pharmacy manager. So all the techs, the other pharmacy, everybody's under me, right? As far as rank. So I'm trying to be strong at the store. Like they didn't even realize what was going on until the guy was actually in the pharmacy taking the drugs. And so, you know, I'm trying to be strong for everybody. I'm keeping it together. You know, I'm talking to the police. I'm doing all these things. When I finally made it home, parked my car in my garage, I sat in my car and cried for like an hour just because, you know, my life was in danger. My brother was not here to like hug me when I got here to be like, you know, it's all right, Eb, you good, you good. He wasn't here. So it just triggered my grief. It was just a lot. And I, in hindsight, I'm like, Eboni, why did you even try to go to work the next day? But yeah, that was just a lot. But that was also a big turning point for me. It's what I call the shift, because I do feel like sometimes shit happens so the shift can happen. And I feel like me getting robbed at gunpoint was probably one of the best things that happened to me in 2020, because it forced me to take a hard look at what I was doing as far as my purpose and the things that I wanted to do. And so since I've been off, I started my coaching business and I'm really, you know, working on some other things. So I thank God for the robbery, as crazy as that sounds, because it pushed me in a different direction, which I feel like sometimes God does push us. We don't listen. He pushes us hard. And that's what he did with that robbery. He just pushed me really hard. And I appreciate him for it because I wasn't hurt, just, you know, mentally a little shook up. But
yeah. No, I'm definitely grateful for you. And I like the mindset of just being able to take something negative and turn it into a positive. Mm-hmm. Like that's true. That's very true. Always. That says a lot about you and your character. So tell me this. What advice would you give your younger self?
Live for you. That's like, because most of my life, actually up until Jason passed away, I lived most of my life either for other people or afraid of what other people would think about me and my actions. So I never truly was myself until after I lost Jason, found myself. And now you take me or you leave me. I am who I am. So I would just tell my younger self to be you. You're perfect. You're beautiful. You're smart. You're worthy. You're deserving as you are. Be you. And whoever does not accept, love, or appreciate you, they're not your people. You know, and that was something that I struggled with a lot as a kid. So I'm enough. Be me. And it'll be fine. Because I mean, every opportunity that I've had has come on the back side of me being me. So that's what I would do.
Indeed. All right. And so with that, do you see your growth?
Yes. I feel like I've grown more in these last few years than I have in all the years before. I'm just a better person all around, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. I'm just a better person. Happier. Skin's glowing. Just kidding.
Definitely. I have to say amen to that.
No, I mean, I'm in a much better place. And like I said, I attribute that to being broken. Like, I know what real pain looks like. So I'm able to just, little things, I'm able to just let them go, brush them off, and not let that stuff weigh me down. It keeps me light, and I'm happy, and I'm just doing things that God called me to do.
Okay, there we go. Well, look, I want to thank you personally for coming on and for sharing and for dropping some tools. Look, I got a page and a half worth of notes, so I hope y'all out there that's been listening has been writing down some of these gems that she's been dropping. I just want to turn it over to you and give you a chance to speak on your projects, what you're doing, how people can reach you, your book, your coaching, the whole nine.
I have a million things going on. So yeah, I do have a lot going on. I have my book, My Brother's Keeper, is available on Amazon. All of my books are available on drebbooks.com. Coaching is drebbcoaching.com. My blog and podcast are accessible through drebbsays.com. My podcast is also on YouTube. I have a t-shirt line, drebbtees.com. So I just have a lot going on. Dr. Ebb is busy, but the one site you can go to for everything is drebbooks.com. It has links to everything, has links to my social media handles. Dr. Ebb, Dr. Ebb Says, Dr. Ebb Tees on Instagram, Eboni Ervin on Facebook. The podcast I had to stop because of COVID, so I'm looking forward to revving that back up. I only had a few episodes recorded at the time, but excited about revving that back up. Just excited about what's in store for the future. My Brother's Keeper, though, that's my baby. So if somebody wants to support me, get the book. That's the biggest way you can support me.
There we go. And where can we find the book?
drebbooks.com or on Amazon. It's on Amazon as well. My Brother's Keeper by Dr. Eboni Ervin.
All right. It sounds like you got another one coming out soon, too.
I do. I'm actually working on another project. I don't want to talk about it too much. It's still in like the brainstorming phases. I have a few ebooks that I've written. They're all available on my book website. But yeah, I'm always up to something. Always. I'm never not working. I'm always up to something. Oh my God. Just trying to build my platform. It's slowly growing. The blog is really taking off though. I have over 100 articles out there. I have a very large blog following. So that right there, there's something for everyone out there. I talk about grief, mental health, dating and relationships, spirituality, everything. I post a new blog every Tuesday on drebbsays.com.
Awesome. Well, amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
This has been awesome. My butterflies have settled down since we got all this started, so we're good.
I think I did okay. I was nervous, but it's all good.
You did good. And look, to the audience out there, this is Dr. Ebb and Greg. We're signing off, telling all y'all to stay safe, stay focused, and stay engaged.
You've been listening to Guards Down with Greg Washington. PTSD and complicated grief are very real. About 8 out of every 100 people will have PTSD at some point in their lives. About 20 to 54% of people with complicated grief will simultaneously suffer from major depressive disorder. And that's why shows like this are hugely important, raising awareness for PTSD and complicated grief. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hook up with us at guardsdown.com. We are iron.org, on Facebook at Guards Down, and find us on YouTube and Instagram.